At the northern edge of California, where forests rise into mist and snow gathers on the shoulders of a solitary mountain, stands a peak that has inspired awe and fear for centuries. Mount Shasta towers nearly 15,000 feet above the valleys below, a silent sentinel of stone and ice, ancient and alive. To the eye, it is only a mountain, but to those who have lived in its shadow, it is something far greater. For as long as anyone can remember, people have whispered that something sleeps beneath it. The native peoples of the region, the Wintu, Modoc, and Shasta tribes, have told stories of the mountain since before recorded time. To them, it was not merely a landmark, but a living being, the dwelling place of powerful spirits. They spoke of the Great Spirit who descended upon its summit in a golden chariot, of luminous beings who moved between worlds through hidden doorways in the rock. The mountain, they said, was hollow, a world within a world, where ancient ones still walked. When European settlers arrived in the 19th century, they brought new languages but found the same wonder. Mount Shasta seemed to pull at the imagination. Travelers reported strange lights glimmering along its slopes, sudden changes in weather, and a stillness that felt almost sentient. Some claimed to hear deep, resonant sounds echoing through the valleys at night, as if the mountain itself were breathing. By the early 1900s, stories of what lay beneath Mount Shasta had spread far beyond California. A man named Frederick Spencer Oliver published a book titled A Dweller on Two Planets, in which he claimed to have received telepathic messages from beings living inside the mountain, survivors of a lost continent called Lemuria. According to Oliver, these ancient people had fled a global catastrophe thousands of years ago, retreating into vast caverns beneath Shasta, where they built shining cities lit by crystal energy. The idea was dismissed by scientists but captured the public imagination. In an age of exploration and spiritual revival, the story of a hidden world beneath an American mountain felt strangely possible. Others soon claimed to have seen evidence themselves, footprints too large for any modern man, doorways in sheer cliffs that led to nowhere, and warm air rising from cracks in the rock even in the depths of winter. As the decades passed, Mount Shasta's legend only deepened. Hikers spoke of hearing music in the wind, faint, rhythmic tones that seemed to rise from the ground itself. Campers described meeting strangers in robes who vanished without a trace. Pilots flying overhead reported glowing orbs circling the summit before disappearing into the clouds. Even geologists admitted the mountain was riddled with lava tubes, natural tunnels carved by ancient eruptions that stretched for miles beneath the surface. What if some of those tunnels went deeper than anyone imagined? What if the myths were not just metaphors but distorted memories, echoes of something that once happened long before our time? To this day, no one knows how far the caverns beneath Mount Shasta truly reach. The volcano's structure is complex, layers of lava, ice, and ash, built up over hundreds of thousands of years. Some believe there are chambers miles below the surface connected by passages too unstable to explore. Others insist that whatever lies beneath is not natural at all. In 1931, a group of prospectors claimed to have found a hidden entrance on the southern slope. They said it led to a vast hall lined with stone pillars and golden ornaments, unlike anything they had seen. But when they returned with a larger team, the opening was gone, buried by a rock slide or something else. Their story was never verified, yet it became part of the growing mystery. Through the 20th century, explorers, mystics, and scientists alike came to Shasta in search of answers. Some brought instruments, others only faith. A few returned with strange photographs showing what appeared to be light sources deep underground. Most found nothing. And yet, the feeling remained that something ancient and intelligent hides within that mountain, watching silently as time moves on. Mount Shasta became a meeting point between myth and geology, between science and belief, a place where the world above and the world below seemed to blur. Even today, the air around it feels charged, as though the earth itself remembers something it cannot quite say. If there truly are hidden temples beneath Shasta, they are older than our history, remnants of an age when the earth was young and humanity lived closer to its mysteries. And if the stories are true, the people who built them did not vanish. They went underground, waiting for the world to be ready to remember. Beneath Mount Shasta, the earth is not solid. The mountain is a volcano, dormant but not dead, its heart a labyrinth of tunnels carved by rivers of fire long before the first humans looked upon its peak. Geologists who study it describe a honeycomb of lava tubes winding downward, their walls glassy and black, their ceilings arched like cathedral vaults. Some are wide enough to walk through, others narrow to cracks. But not all of them are accounted for. For generations, explorers have reported passages that do not appear on any map, tunnels that seem to change direction, echoing as if opening into vast unseen chambers. Some speak of feeling a low vibration deep within the rock, a sound too deep to be heard, more like a pulse felt through the bones. The mountain hums, they say, as if something within it still stirs. In the early 1900s, miners and surveyors began to enter Shasta's slopes in search of gold, crystal, and geothermal heat. Some returned with stories they could not explain. One prospector claimed to have discovered a tunnel lined with smooth stone, entirely unlike the rough surfaces of natural lava tubes. He said the walls were carved with symbols that shimmered faintly in the light of his lantern, marks that seemed to change shape when he turned away. He left to gather others, but when they came back, the tunnel had vanished behind a fall of rock that looked centuries old. In 1934, a small newspaper in Northern California published an account from a man named J.C. Brown. He claimed that 30 years earlier, while searching for gold in the mountain, he had found an entrance to a vast underground city. Inside, he said, were mummified bodies, some nearly 10 feet tall, resting in crystal coffins. The walls, he described, were lined with hieroglyphic-like carvings and inlaid with precious metals. Brown claimed to have mapped part of the city before sealing the entrance to return with help. He later assembled a team of 80 people to excavate the site, but the day before the expedition was to begin, he disappeared. He was never seen again. Many dismissed the story as a hoax, but others noticed its strange familiarity. The description of the golden halls matched older native legends about a people who lived inside the mountain, guarding relics from before the flood. The Wintu spoke of the Latu, shining ones who once walked openly among humans before retreating below to escape the chaos of the surface world. The Modoc said the entrances were sealed by the spirits themselves to keep the world above safe from what slept beneath. Even scientists who approached the mountain with rational curiosity often left with more questions than answers. Geologists confirmed that the mountain's base contains voids large enough to hide small lakes or chambers. Seismologists recorded tremors that did not behave like normal tectonic movement, short, rhythmic pulses too precise to be natural. They were often dismissed as equipment error, yet the data repeated itself year after year. In 1950, a U.S. Forest Service ranger named Paul Dale wrote in his logbook that while patrolling near Panther Meadows, he saw what looked like a faint orange glow coming from the ground. When he approached, the light dimmed and the air grew noticeably warmer. There was no fire, no people, and no trace of heat once it faded. His report was filed and forgotten, but it joined a long line of similar accounts, of mysterious lights, humming sounds, and voices that seemed to echo from below the earth. Some believe that these phenomena have natural explanations, escaping geothermal gas, electrical discharges, or magnetic disturbances, but others see patterns too deliberate to ignore. The mountain stories align too closely with those from other parts of the world, the subterranean cities of Cappadocia and Turkey, the tunnel networks of the Andes, the carved caverns beneath the Giza Plateau. In every case, the tale is the same: ancient people vanishing underground to preserve their knowledge from a catastrophe above. In recent decades, modern explorers have returned to Mount Shasta with technology far beyond lanterns and picks. Ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging have been used to map the slopes. Official reports describe multiple cavities at unusual depths, some extending horizontally in patterns inconsistent with known lava flows. These cavities remain unexplored, their entrances, if they exist, hidden or sealed. Despite the absence of proof, the belief endures that Shasta's interior houses something built rather than born. Those who live nearby say that on quiet nights you can feel vibrations rising through the soil, steady and deep, like the slow heartbeat of the mountain itself. Some call it geological resonance. Others whisper that it is the hum of machines, ancient engines still running beneath the rock. It is easy to dismiss these stories, as science often does, but history has shown that myth and fact are rarely strangers. Once, Göbekli Tepe was dismissed as impossible, a temple built before civilization. Once, the cave paintings of Lascaux were thought too sophisticated for primitive humans. Time and again, the Earth reminds us that its memory is longer than ours. If Mount Shasta does hold a secret beneath its slopes, it has kept it well. But perhaps the stories are not exaggerations, only memories too old to be measured. Perhaps the people who built the underground world did so not for worship or treasure, but survival. Whatever truth lies beneath the mountain, it remains silent, a vault sealed by time and guarded by legend. The entrances, if they ever existed, are hidden now beneath snow, ash, and stone. Yet those who come close say they still feel watched, not with menace, but with the weight of something ancient, enduring, and alive. The story of what lies beneath Mount Shasta cannot be told without speaking of the Lemurians, a name that has become inseparable from the mountain's legend. Their tale began far from California, in the writings of 19th-century mystics who believed that long before Atlantis, another continent once stretched across the Pacific Ocean. They called it Lemuria, a land that connected Asia, Australia, and the Americas, a paradise that vanished beneath the sea tens of thousands of years ago. According to those early accounts, the Lemurians were not ordinary humans. They were taller, wiser, and older than any known civilization. Some said they stood 12 feet high and radiated light from their skin. Others described them as gentle beings devoted to peace and spiritual knowledge. When their homeland began to sink, they retreated to safety, some crossing the seas, others disappearing underground. And in the New World, at the foot of a great mountain, they built a city to preserve what was left of their world. That mountain was Shasta. To most, the story sounds like myth. But to those who have walked among its forests and felt the strange stillness in its air, the legend feels alive. Beginning in the early 20th century, reports began to surface of travelers who claimed to have met the descendants of these beings. They told of pale, tall figures dressed in white robes, speaking in calm voices and vanishing when approached. Some said the strangers carried spheres that glowed faintly in their hands. Others claimed to have followed them to concealed doorways cut into the rock, entrances that shimmered with light before closing silently behind them. In 1932, a man named Edward Lancer wrote of seeing a group of people on Mount Shasta who did not appear human. He described them as majestic in movement and feature, with eyes like molten gold. They walked single file up a steep slope and disappeared into a fissure that closed behind them without a sound. When he reported what he had seen, locals simply nodded. Such things, they said, were not unusual here. The most detailed stories came from a man named Guy Ballard, who later founded a spiritual movement known as the I Am activity. Ballard claimed that while hiking near the mountain's summit in 1930, he encountered a radiant being who called himself Saint-Germain, a master from the ancient world of Lemuria. The being, Ballard said, taught him secrets of energy and consciousness before vanishing into thin air. Ballard's followers believed that the Lemurians were not extinct, but ascended, guardians of hidden wisdom, watching humanity's progress from their luminous halls beneath Shasta. Skeptics dismissed it all as fantasy, yet the stories refused to fade. Too many people, from too many walks of life, claimed encounters they could not explain. In the years that followed, the legends evolved. Some said the Lemurians had built vast crystal cities powered by the Earth's magnetic fields. Others claimed they used light itself as energy, harnessing vibrations to create heat, sound, and levitation. Their halls, it was said, shone with a golden glow that needed no fire, and their technology allowed them to move through solid rock as easily as air. What makes these stories so enduring is that they mirror older traditions from around the world. The Hopi of the American Southwest speak of the Ant People, beings who lived beneath the earth and helped humanity survive two global catastrophes. The Tibetan scriptures describe Agartha, a hidden realm inside the earth, ruled by enlightened beings who guard sacred knowledge until the surface world is ready. The Hindu epics tell of Patala, a subterranean paradise filled with shining palaces and ancient wisdom. In every version, the message is the same. When the world above is destroyed, the wise retreat below to preserve life. Modern historians call these stories symbolic, metaphors for spiritual retreat and rebirth. But what if they are memories of real events? What if, after the last great flood, survivors did descend into the earth to rebuild? Mount Shasta, Standing at the junction of ancient tectonic lines, geothermal vents, and magnetic anomalies, would have been a natural refuge, warm in winter, rich in minerals, and easily hidden. The mountain could have offered both protection and energy to those who knew how to use it. Scientists confirm that the mountain's lava tubes could house entire structures. Some extend for miles, wide enough for halls and chambers. Within them, mineral deposits glisten like crystal, and temperatures remain stable year-round. For ancient engineers, it would have been the perfect foundation. For the Lemurians of legend, it was a sanctuary that time could not touch. Even now, strange things are reported. Locals tell of soft lights glowing from fissures near the upper slopes, or of faint music echoing underground when the wind is still. Instruments sometimes malfunction near certain areas. Compasses spin, batteries drain, and recording devices capture tones inaudible to the ear. Scientists attribute this to magnetic interference. Believers call it proof. It is said that deep within the mountain lies Telos, the city of the Lemurians, a place of perfect harmony, where knowledge from the ancient world is kept alive. They say its inhabitants still watch us, waiting for the day when humanity is ready to remember who it once was. Whether myth or metaphor, the legend of Telos endures because it speaks to something within us, the idea that our past was not primitive but profound. That civilization did not begin in ignorance but in wisdom, and that somewhere beneath our feet, the remnants of that wisdom still live, hidden by stone and time. Mount Shasta's silence has become its voice. It does not need to prove its secrets. The mountain simply waits, a monument to the possibility that beneath the world we know lies another, far older one, still breathing in the dark. Science approaches Mount Shasta differently than legend does, with instruments instead of intuition, and with data instead of faith. Yet strangely, the two often meet in the middle. Even the most rational explorers have come away from the mountain with more questions than answers, describing a place where the laws of nature seem to stretch, if not bend, into something beyond understanding. Geologists agree that Mount Shasta is one of the most complex volcanic systems in North America. Beneath its surface lies a network of chambers and tunnels created by thousands of years of eruptions, collapses, and lava flows. But while most volcanoes are predictable in structure, Shasta's interior is different. Surveys using ground-penetrating radar have revealed anomalies, voids, and echoes that do not correspond to the known paths of lava tubes. Some appear to form deliberate shapes, domes, corridors, and perfectly symmetrical cavities deep below the crust. At first, scientists dismissed these readings as interference, but repeated scans by separate teams produced similar results. The data showed that these voids reflected sound differently, as though their walls were smoother than natural rock. One geophysicist who studied the results described them as almost architectural. Officially, the anomalies remain unexplained. Magnetometers have recorded equally strange phenomena. The magnetic field around Shasta fluctuates unpredictably, creating zones of distortion that can extend for miles. Compasses spin, and aircraft instruments briefly lose calibration when passing directly over the summit. Electrical devices malfunction, cameras fail, and radio signals dissolve into static. These effects are stronger during certain lunar phases and after storms, patterns that defy easy geological explanation. Some scientists attribute these anomalies to the mountain's magnetic minerals and geothermal energy, yet even they admit that the readings are unusually strong for a dormant volcano. Others quietly speculate that cavities beneath the mountain might contain large metallic deposits or even unknown sources of electromagnetic radiation. To believers, these are signs of an ancient technology still operating in the depths, the crystal energy that the Lemurian legends describe. Sound is another mystery. For decades, visitors to Shasta have reported hearing low, rhythmic tones that seem to rise from underground. The sounds are not constant, but when they occur, they vibrate through the earth like a slow pulse, deep enough to be felt in the chest. Some describe it as a hum, others as a faint musical resonance. Audio engineers who have tried to record it have captured frequencies below the range of normal hearing, roughly the same tones produced by large industrial turbines. Yet no machinery exists for miles. Seismologists studying the area have found that the hum correlates with microseismic activity, tiny vibrations caused by movement deep within the crust. But the pattern is too regular, too harmonic, almost like the vibration of a tuned instrument. The locals call it the mountain's voice. Light, too, behaves strangely here. Photographers camping on the slopes have captured orbs and streaks of illumination hovering in the trees, or moving slowly along the ridges. Some of these lights are bright enough to cast shadows, others appear translucent, flickering in and out like reflections in water. In some cases, they have been visible to the naked eye but not to the camera, and sometimes the reverse. Skeptics point to natural causes, atmospheric plasma, ball lightning, reflections from distant cities. But the lights often appear in areas shielded from all human interference. When they do, they seem to follow deliberate paths, hovering briefly, then vanishing into the ground or into the clouds above the summit. Pilots flying over the mountain at night have reported similar lights moving below their altitude, as if searching for something. Adding to the puzzle are reports of sudden changes in air temperature. Climbers describe walking through patches of warm air surrounded by snow and ice, as though standing near a hidden vent. Yet no geothermal openings have been found in those locations. Instruments record temperature spikes that vanish moments later, replaced by freezing wind. The sensation is like walking through the exhale of a giant unseen machine. Even the wildlife seems affected. Birds often avoid certain areas of the forest, flying around them in wide arcs. Compasses spin within those zones, and animals move with quiet urgency, as if guided by instincts we no longer understand. One of the most striking modern findings comes from satellite imaging. In thermal scans taken from orbit, the slopes of Mount Shasta show faint geometric patterns of heat, lines and rectangles that do not match the mountain's natural contours. The formations appear to be buried deep enough that no structure could be seen from the surface, yet consistent enough to suggest deliberate design. Officially, they are artifacts, errors caused by equipment calibration. But to others, they are blueprints, the outline of a city hidden beneath centuries of stone. It is easy to dismiss all of this as coincidence, misinterpretation, or the human tendency to see order in chaos. Yet the number of anomalies defies simple explanation. Mount Shasta is not just another mountain, it is an intersection, a convergence of myth, magnetism, and mystery. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between science and story. Perhaps the legends of glowing halls and ancient energy are distorted memories of real natural forces, energies our ancestors felt but could not name. Or perhaps the mountain hides something more deliberate, something built in a time when Earth's secrets were still understood. Whatever the cause, one thing is certain. Mount Shasta is alive in ways we do not yet comprehend. Its pulse can be measured, its voice can be heard, and its presence can be felt. Whether those sensations come from geology or something far older remains the great unanswered question. By the time the 20th century turned into the 21st, Mount Shasta had become more than a mountain. It had become a symbol. To some, it was a portal to another dimension. To others, a sacred site guarding humanity's forgotten history. Scientists, spiritual seekers, and wanderers alike came to its slopes, drawn by stories that refused to fade. Yet, the deeper people looked, the more the mountain seemed to hide. In the 1960s and 70s, a new generation of explorers arrived armed with technology, metal detectors, cameras, and ground sensors. They mapped, climbed, and camped, trying to find evidence of the legendary entrances. One team from Oregon reportedly discovered a smooth circular opening sealed by an enormous stone. It appeared artificial, like a doorway carved with precision tools. When they returned days later with heavier equipment, the rock face was solid, as if the doorway had never existed. Others came not to excavate, but to listen. In the 1980s, meditation groups began gathering on the mountain, claiming that certain vibrations or frequencies could open channels of communication with the beings inside. They described hearing voices during moments of silence, not from within their own minds, but from the air around them, deep, calm, and strangely harmonious. They said the Lemurians were speaking again, reminding humanity of its ancient origins. Among those who came was a man named Robert Adams, a retired engineer who devoted years to studying the mountain's magnetic field. He believed that Shasta was not merely geological but mechanical, a massive natural machine created to stabilize the planet's energy grid. He published papers suggesting that the electromagnetic anomalies recorded near the mountain were too rhythmic to be random. He theorized that deep inside, a crystalline structure might exist, resonating like a heartbeat. His work never gained mainstream recognition, but his data matched that of NASA's magnetic field records taken from orbit, a steady, pulsing signature directly beneath Mount Shasta. The mountain also drew those who sought meaning rather than evidence. Mystics and spiritual teachers called it a point of ascension, a bridge between the physical and the unseen. They said the beings below were not hiding, but watching, waiting for humanity to evolve beyond greed and fear before revealing themselves again. Their teaching spread online, attracting thousands of followers from around the world. For some, Mount Shasta became a modern pilgrimage site. Each summer, gatherings form in the meadows where people meditate, share visions, and speak of strange encounters. Glowing figures glimpsed between trees, spheres of light hovering above the tree line, and dreams that seem to continue after waking. Even those who come with skepticism often leave with unease, describing an unshakable sense of presence, as if the mountain is aware of them. There are darker stories, too. In 2011, a small team of cave researchers disappeared while exploring lava tubes on the southern slope. Their equipment was later found neatly stacked near the entrance, but there were no footprints leading away. Search teams found nothing. The incident was never linked to anything supernatural, yet it joined the long history of vanishings associated with the area. Locals warn hikers not to wander off alone, especially near certain zones known for sudden fogs and disorienting silence. Mount Shasta's legend has adapted easily to the digital age. Satellite images circulate online showing alleged geometric patterns and entrances on the mountain sides. Videos capture flickering lights moving in symmetrical paths. Amateur explorers claim to have recorded deep metallic sounds coming from the ground. The internet has made the myth immortal and global. People in Japan, South America, and Europe now speak of Shasta as a sacred twin to their own ancient sites. Fuji, Titicaca, Montserrat, each said to conceal a secret world beneath. In recent years, even professional researchers have become more open to what they once dismissed. Geophysicists studying the Earth's crust have confirmed that massive caverns exist beneath volcanic mountains. NASA's Mars probes, scanning for lava tubes on the Red Planet, use Mount Shasta's formations as a reference for alien subterranean habitats. Ironically, in searching for life beyond Earth, science has begun to admit that we know very little about what lies below our own. One expedition in 2018, organized by independent researchers, used drones and infrared imaging to scan the mountain's inaccessible northern slopes. They captured footage showing heat sources deep within the rock, steady, geometric, and spaced too evenly for random geothermal vents. The images have never been conclusively explained. The team reported interference in their equipment during the scan, compasses spinning, drones losing signal, and an audible hum vibrating through the ground. Some say that the mountain does not wish to be explored, that it protects its secrets. Others believe the entrances have long since sealed, the world beneath gone quiet. But there is also the possibility that what sleeps there has never stopped watching. Mount Shasta remains a paradox, too full of legend to be ignored, too full of mystery to be proven. Even those who have spent a lifetime studying it admit that its presence cannot be measured by instruments alone. There is something about the mountain that affects people in ways they cannot describe, a calmness, a pull, a strange feeling of remembrance. It is as though the place itself whispers of another age, one when the line between myth and history was not yet drawn. And so, decade after decade, people keep returning. Some come seeking treasure, others enlightenment, others simply the silence of the pines. They climb its slopes. They listen for its hum. They wait for the light. And sometimes, for reasons no one can explain, the mountain answers, not in words, but in the quiet certainty that some truths are not meant to be found, only felt. The legends of Mount Shasta do not stand alone. Across the world, from the deserts of Egypt to the high plateaus of South America, the same story repeats, of tunnels, cities, and beings who retreated beneath the earth in an age when the surface was no longer safe. The mountain's myth is part of something far larger, a pattern that stretches across continents and millennia. In the Himalayas, monks speak of Agartha, a hidden realm beneath the mountains where an enlightened society has flourished for ages, untouched by war or time. According to their teachings, Agartha is not a myth, but a real network of caverns stretching under Asia, connected by vast tunnels to sacred peaks like Kailash and Shambhala. The beings who dwell there, they say, are guardians of ancient wisdom, waiting for the world above to reach spiritual maturity before emerging again. Thousands of miles away, the Hopi of North America tell of the Ant People, a benevolent race who lived underground and saved humanity during two great cataclysms. When fire rained from the sky and the earth was covered in darkness, the Ant People brought survivors into their tunnels, feeding them and teaching them how to live until the surface healed. When the people finally returned to the world above, They promised never to forget their subterranean protectors. Even now, Hopi ceremonies honor them with songs and carvings of figures with large eyes and elongated heads, eerily reminiscent of ancient depictions from other continents. In South America, deep in the Andes, the Inca spoke of immense tunnels stretching from Cuzco to Lake Titicaca, said to lead to the underworld of the gods. Some explorers in the 20th century claim to have entered these passageways, long, polished corridors of stone that seem to have been cut with precision tools. One expedition vanished entirely, their lights seen flickering for hours before fading into the dark. When rescuers arrived, there were no footprints, no equipment, only silence. Farther north, the Maya spoke of Xibalba, the world below, a realm of the dead that was also a place of origin. The gods, they said, first created humanity within that darkness before sending them to the surface. Even today, divers exploring the flooded cenotes of the Yucatan Peninsula have discovered miles of underwater tunnels containing carvings, altars, and offerings, as if the people truly believed they were gateways to another world. In Turkey, the underground city of Derinkuyu was rediscovered in the 1960s. It descends more than 250 feet below the surface, large enough to house 20,000 people, with ventilation shafts, stables, and wells. The structure was carved thousands of years ago by unknown hands. Some believe it was a refuge from invaders or climate catastrophe. Others suspect it was something far older, a remnant of a time when entire populations lived beneath the ground. All these stories share the same elements: a disaster above, a retreat below, a promise to return. The details differ, gods or sages, spirits or survivors, but the rhythm of the myth remains constant. It is as though humanity carries a collective memory of having once lived under the earth, or at least having been guided by those who did. Mount Shasta fits perfectly into this pattern. The Lemurians, like the Ant People or the Masters of Agartha, are said to have gone underground after a world-ending event, a flood, a shift of continents, a fall of fire from the sky. They built a sanctuary, preserved their knowledge, and watched the surface slowly rebuild. What makes the Shasta legend unique is that it sits on the edge of the Pacific Rim, the very region where geologists believe an ancient landmass once existed, now lost beneath the ocean. If the myth of Lemuria has any geological root, it would be here. Even the names echo across cultures. Lemuria, Agartha, Xibalba, each one meaning the inner place, the hidden land, or the world within. Modern researchers have noticed that these myths align with real geological formations, massive lava tube systems, tectonic fault lines, and hollowed mountain networks capable of hiding entire civilizations. In a purely physical sense, the Earth is already half hollow. Nature has built the architecture, legend merely fills it with memory. But perhaps these myths are not only about places. Perhaps they are about preservation, the instinct to go inward when the world falls apart. In every story, the underground dwellers are the keepers of knowledge, waiting for humanity to become wise enough to handle it again. They are reminders that wisdom often hides in darkness, emerging only when the world above is ready to receive it. In recent years, geologists studying global tunnel systems have found possible connections between continents once thought isolated. Similar mineral layers and magnetic properties appear in sites thousands of miles apart. Some researchers have even proposed that natural tunnels could stretch across entire tectonic plates, an idea dismissed by mainstream science but not entirely impossible. If such networks exist, they might explain how identical myths arose in cultures that never met. Mount Shasta, then, may not be a singular mystery, but part of a vast forgotten geography, a network of sacred sites where the earth itself seems to hum with memory. The energy fields recorded at Shasta also appear near Kailash, Titicaca, and Giza. All of them are mountains or plateaus that ancient people called gateways to the underworld. Perhaps they are points on an ancient grid, markers of something humanity once understood, that the planet is not dead rock, but a living organism, breathing through these sacred places. If that is true, then the beings said to dwell beneath Shasta may not be remnants of another race, but manifestations of that living earth, consciousness given form. To the ancients, they were gods. To us, they are myths. Yet both may be names for the same force, the intelligence that built the world and still speaks through its mountains, its oceans, and its silence. The deeper we dig into these myths, the clearer it becomes that the story of the world beneath is not about escaping reality, but remembering it. The people who built the tunnels, real or imagined, were not hiding from life, but preserving it, building wombs of stone to carry wisdom through the floods of time. And when the earth was ready, they returned to the surface, bringing light back into the world. Mount Shasta's legend is a continuation of that cycle, the story of descent, survival, and rebirth. Whether literal or symbolic, it tells us that nothing truly vanishes. What goes underground waits. What is forgotten remembers. And what is lost, sooner or later, rises again. Every legend reaches a point where it stops being about the past and begins to speak about the present. The story of Mount Shasta is no longer just about what might lie beneath its slopes. It has become a mirror for what lies within us. For centuries, people have come to this mountain searching for something buried, something ancient, something lost. Some call it knowledge, others truth, others God. But maybe what they're really searching for is memory. The memory of a time when humanity lived in harmony with the earth, when we listened instead of conquered, and when the boundaries between spirit and stone had not yet been drawn. When you stand beneath the great peak and feel the silence of its forests, the air carries a weight that cannot be measured. It's not emptiness, it's presence. The mountain feels aware, patient, almost sentient, as if it remembers everything that has ever touched its surface. The snow that falls on its summit melts into streams that run through the same valleys where the first stories were told. The soil beneath your feet might once have been the roof of the hidden world. You can almost feel it breathing, deep and slow. Perhaps that is why Mount Shasta has become a beacon for so many, scientists, wanderers, mystics, and dreamers alike. Each one brings a question and leaves with more. The geologist sees fault lines and volcanic strata, but cannot explain the magnetic hum that instruments detect. The spiritual seeker feels vibrations that no device can measure. The skeptic climbs for the view, yet senses something they cannot name. The mountain welcomes all of them and answers none. It simply exists, vast and silent, its mystery intact. It's easy to imagine the Lemurians as beings of myth, tall, luminous figures who stepped beyond time. But what if their story is not about gods or aliens or lost continents? What if it's about us, about what humanity was and what it could be again? Maybe the underground city is not literal, but symbolic, a reminder that beneath every civilization, beneath every layer of progress and technology, there is something older and purer waiting to be remembered. A wisdom we have buried under centuries of noise. Modern life is loud. The earth hums too, but few still listen. The legends of Shasta ask us to stop and remember that we are not separate from this planet. We are its memory. The same minerals that form the mountain's heart are in our blood. The same magnetic pulse that stirs beneath the volcano beats inside us. The story of the hidden world is not about escaping into the earth. It's about returning to it, to the understanding that everything above and below, light and dark, is connected. Science continues to study the mountain, mapping its tunnels, scanning its depths, measuring its pulse. And maybe one day it will uncover something extraordinary, a chamber, a structure, a sign that the stories were true. Or maybe it will find nothing but rock and silence. But even if that day comes, the legend will not die, because the truth of Mount Shasta does not live in data. It lives in the human imagination, in the part of us that refuses to believe that mystery has an end. We build myths to remember what facts cannot hold. Atlantis, Lemuria, Agartha, Telos. These names endure not because they are proven, but because they speak to something we all feel. That we are descendants of forgotten greatness, fragments of a story still unfolding. Every generation retells the myth with new language. Scientists call it prehistory, mystics call it ascension, artists call it inspiration. But the core remains the same. Something came before us, and it waits to be rediscovered. Mount Shasta stands as a monument to that waiting. Whether the caverns beneath it hold cities or only echoes, the mountain continues to call. Those who climb it, study it, or dream of it become part of its story, another layer of legend, another voice added to its song. And that song is older than civilization, older than words. It is the sound of the earth remembering itself. Maybe that's what the hum really is. Not machinery or myth, but the vibration of memory, the resonance of creation echoing through the bones of the world. When you stand upon the mountain and feel it beneath you, you're not just standing on stone. You're standing on time itself, the slow heartbeat of the planet, the pulse of everything that ever lived, slept, and dreamed beneath the stars. The legends say that one day when humanity is ready, the hidden ones will rise again, and the world will remember its first teachers. Maybe that day will never come. Or maybe it already has, not as a revelation of shining beings, but as a quiet rediscovery of wonder. Every person who looks at the mountain and feels something stir inside them is part of that awakening. In the end, Mount Shasta's greatest secret may not be buried beneath the ground at all. It may be that the true hidden world has always been within, the part of us that still believes in mystery, that still listens to the hum of the earth, that still knows we are not alone. And so the mountain remains, its summit veiled in cloud, its base wrapped in forest, its heart unknown. A silent witness to the ages, a temple without walls, a doorway that opens not downward but inward, into the forgotten chambers of the human soul.